The thing I worry about is that what comes with power and the morality of it. And I see these massive tech leaders in the US that I thought were very moral people when they started. You look at, SpaceX, or you look at Amazon. And I wanted to be those people when they grew up and they built these incredible companies. And now I question their deep morality.
Welcome to Exceptionals, the podcast. A leadership podcast about the origin stories of exceptional leaders and their identity intelligence. A superpower everybody has, but nobody measures. Until now. Today we're talking to Matthijs Welle, the CEO and co-founder of Mews, an industry-leading hospitality operating system. Under his exceptional leadership, the company has grown into a multi-billion-dollar unicorn. His mission? To transform the industry and make the world more hospitable. Welcome, Matthijs. Pim and I are super excited to dive into your origin story today and the results of your identity intelligence assessment. If you're listening to this podcast and you are also interested in mapping your own identity intelligence and discovering your origin story, do you have an outsider identity, a patchwork, an underdog, or do you have an unseen identity? Go to weareexceptionals.com and discover what gave you your leadership edge. Matthijs, my book, Exceptionals. The subtitle is How to Turn Identity into Your Greatest Leadership Advantage. When I wrote it, you were the first one I thought about to ask to write a case study. Because you are a textbook example of someone who has turned their difference into their superpower. I mean, you lead this multi-billion-dollar tech company, but you are not the typical tech bro.
I hope so. That'd be nice.
And I love you for it. You are very openly gay. Everybody in the scene knows that your dog's name
Everyone is begging me to shut up about it at this point of life.
Well,
we don't.
We love it. That's why you're here. We are very curious to figure out, where did that identity intelligence come from?
Me too. Like, I never come good out of IQ tests. So this is like hopefully a positive moment in my life.
Yeah, I'll get it out of you and we will share it with the world. But before we do that, Pim.
So we asked you beforehand, what is one question someone should ask you to truly get to know you? And you told us, what do you fear of becoming?
Yes. Do you want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
I think the thing I worry about is that what comes with power and the morality of it. And I see these massive tech leaders in the US that I thought were very moral people when they started. You look at, SpaceX, or you look at Amazon. And I wanted to be those people when they grew up and they built these incredible companies. And now I question their deep morality. And I think it's because once you get power, you want to protect and you want to save the money in some way. And I don't aspire to have lots of money. That can't be why we're in this world. We have to make the world a better place. And I don't think that that's what I see with other entrepreneurs. So I do fear deeply when the company grows, you have success and you have money, what that means for my personal morality. And that's why I think deeply about, how do I give back in some other ways than just building a company that earns me more money.
Do you already see that changing over the past 10 years?
I see how I worry about, how do I protect my money, and how do I shield it off in some way, and I worry what the implications of that are. So I don't think I have changed, but because I've seen so many examples of entrepreneurs that I do now think have questionable morals, I really do worry about it. And I want to make sure that I diversify beyond just making money and building an incredible tech company. I want to do other things that make society hopefully a better place.
So this is very interesting, because this question, you said, if you ask me this, you get to know me deeply. So you are deeply in you have a very strong moral compass.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think I've always had that.
You've always had that.
Yeah, I think I've always had that. I've always wanted to fight for the underdog, or just make sure that they're taken care of in some way, more than most people. And I don't know where that came from, but I've always felt that deeply.
Deeply. Okay.
I think if you'd ask my parents, they would probably say that as well about me. It's not like I've made it up just now.
No. What example would they give?
I was just always different from everyone else, and I was always caring for other people more than you'd normally see. And I don't have an example on the go, but it was just in
you.
I was a different little
kind
boy.
of boy.
Yeah.
So we're going to uncover the first outcome of your report, your origin story. And according to your report, your starting point is the underdog identity.
It was funny the other day. My parents came because I moved to the Netherlands a couple of years ago, and they'd had these boxes in the attic for years, and they brought these boxes to my house because, like, now I live in the Netherlands. So do you deal with your crap? But in there, I found school card reports, and teachers of mine were saying, "Well, Matt's, not the brightest, so I can see he's working really hard."
Literally
to keep up.
on the report, Matt is not the brightest.
Like not in those words, but that was implied by it. He's saying we can see that he's struggling to keep up with the rest of the class. And I think that already in the back of my mind was like, well, I'm not going to fail. When you tell me something is not possible, it's inbuilt for me to work just even harder.
Yeah.
And I've always succeeded. So, I studied hard, and that then allowed me to step up into it. And I think it was very early on already. I struggled like in groep 3, which is like when you just learn to read.
Yes.
I was in level 0 out of 10. And then they realized I needed glasses after a year. But you already started like the baseline where you're like, right, you're level 0. And what that does to a young child, it's, I really did feel like I wasn't as smart as everyone else around me. And luckily then glasses helped, and I very quickly went up in the ranks. But very early on,
you were
set expectations for kids, and you have to start getting graded on everything. And for me, that weighed very heavily on me.
But it did not make, so somehow you felt, okay, you are saying that I am not good enough, but you wanted to prove to yourself and to others, your parents?
Yeah, always my mother.
Yeah.
I remember my mother coming home after work, and the first thing she would say, guys, any grades? Any grades? That was always the first question. And that was a moment when I wanted to show up and say, yes, I had an 8 in school.
Yeah.
But it was every day. And it wasn't a bad thing. It's just she deeply cared for performance. So that was just built in.
Yeah.
And I had that. My brothers had a very different response to that. They didn't really deeply care about the grades as much as I did. I really wanted to show up. And because I wasn't always the smartest person in class, I just had to work much harder to get there.
You have, by the way, just for context, you have 2 brothers.
Yeah.
And you are the youngest?
I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle.
Yeah. Okay. So in the framework, you see that underdogs develop this instinct. It's quite unconscious that they have this strong inner compass. Well, you said so. You feel what is right. You feel what is wrong.
Like mostly it was me recognizing where my weaknesses were and then just leaning into the strengths a lot more. Just like
what are your weaknesses and strengths?
So I don't have strong IQ. So I don't naturally know a lot of things. So I have to study more. I have to really dig deep to remember certain things. But I also have a deep empathy for problems. I because I'm not the smartest person all the time, I can translate things very well to anyone, any audience.
Why would you say that is not smart?
Yeah, it's a different kind of intelligence, right? So we have always thought about IQ as the only form of intelligence, and I think EQ has taken a much bigger role in it.
Yeah.
And my EQ is very strong. So I can take something very complex and I'm like, I don't understand it. And I'm unafraid at this point of my life to say that out loud. I think when I was younger, I was afraid to ask the dumb question out loud. And now, like, if I don't understand this, it is very likely someone else doesn't understand it. So let me explain this back to you. And that forces me to actually understand what the concept is, but I can translate it well because of my emotional intelligence.
Okay, and knowing this, so understanding that IQ is a form of intelligence, EQ is a form of intelligence, and understanding how you work is a form of identity intelligence.
Yeah.
When did you become so conscious of this?
I think the realization that I was a great manager in that sense, which happened really when I came out of hotel school and I had to pick a career. And then you apply for these graduate programs, and I had to go through these tests. And a lot of my friends came out saying, "Oh my God, I scored an incredible score in finance, and I scored average in every area." And I thought that was awful because I wasn't special in any way. But actually, I was the one that got through to the graduate program because I was average in everything. So I could have an opinion about any topic. I couldn't, become a specialist in any area. But that instantly said, oh, I do have something special, which is being very average.
But very... So it's so funny. You say, I'm not smart and I'm very average. But you are
the skill of being very average across the board is something very special.
Yeah, so you are a super generalist.
Correct.
So you know everything about everything.
I could have a conversation with anyone in our company today. We have 39 employees, and I can have a conversation. I have interests in what they do. I can go deep on it, but I won't never be the specialist. But I can show a deep enough interest to show I care, but also to understand what they do and then translate that back to the rest of the company.
But is there still some insecurity that you will never be the specialist?
Oh, 100%. Like, I'm deeply insecure about, like, sometimes I speak to someone, I'm like, wow, I don't actually understand what you're saying. And then I'll ask a follow-up question at some point, like, clearly I do not grasp where you're going with it. You're much smarter than me. So
then you feel
IQ,
like little
I feel, I think I struggle with people with incredible IQ. And sometimes EQ doesn't always, in that conversation, help. I think in the bigger picture, I think, especially now with AI, EQ is way more important than IQ is. And I think there's this shift happening in the world, which I'm very excited about because I have strong EQ, where EQ matters more than IQ.
And what do you think about your IDQ? Your identity intelligence.
Like, I love it. But I've only grown to appreciate that later in life. I think when you're younger, you want to be part of the sameness, right? You don't want to be exceptional. You don't want to stand out because you just don't want to be noticed in that way. And I felt that.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I fit in, especially when I went to hotel school. I was just this little boy coming out of the village, and everyone were the guys from The Hague and Amsterdam and the big cities, boys. And I remember how uncomfortable I felt, and I just wanted to fit in. I know instinctively at some point of hotel school, I realized, screw it. I actually like to study. I want to get good grades. I don't want to go out drinking late at night because I have career ambitions and I don't enjoy school. But I know I need the school so that I can start my career and I can start working to change that part of my life. That ambition was always ingrained. But
What was your ambition then, or your dream?
I thought it was becoming a hotel manager. I thought that was the thing that was going to make me happy. So that I was always going after becoming a general manager. And then as you go about that path, you realize it isn't the thing that makes me happy.
Did you become a general manager?
I never reached it. I became a regional director of sales for Eastern Europe and Russia for Hilton. And I was traveling around, and I realized that could have been the next step, could have been general manager, but it wouldn't have made me happy.
Okay.
That really came after about 10 years in business, having been in multiple jobs, realizing what actually I wanted. And it's these early ambitions that you have that it's allowed to change those goals, but I didn't know that was allowed. You know, I'd said so loudly, out loud, I want to be a general manager in a hotel, that it's very hard to then correct and say, well, I failed. I've clearly set the wrong goals because I don't want to be a general manager.
Yeah.
But at some point of your life, you're like, but I also want to be happy.
What would you say to somebody who is now standing in that same situation?
I like it.
You like that situation? You like this question?
Situation, but I can imagine there's many people in this situation.
Yeah, they're in that situation of feeling I do not totally fit in. I'm a little bit average, but I do want to, push through and become successful. What would you say to someone like that?
I don't know if anything I would say would fix what's happening in someone's head at that age, because we're all just on a self-discovery journey in the world, and we're trying to figure out what works for us. But don't listen too deeply to advice. Just do the thing that you think is right, and do the thing that you think will make you happy right now.
Yeah.
The right thing will come on your path at some point. I think I was so deeply worried about my career and every step that I'd planned out. And if something failed, my whole career would fail. But things fall in place.
I think that's very good advice, because it's really saying lean into that, your own inner compass.
Yeah.
And that there is only now. And enjoy that and see what the next step
Just get
will
the
unfold.
most learning out of right now.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so I wanted to take it back because, sorry, I was interrupting you, asking you about your dream. But Ingrid was asking you, when did it shift from from you being the other, the one that's different, to turning that into your superpower? So I think it came after you gave up your dream of a general manager. Can you take us there?
Yeah, or just when I became a manager of larger teams, and I realized that I was very good at this. Like the idea of seeing what people struggled with, and I would just take them aside and saying, let's work on that together. And that ability to see the individual instead of just managing a team and everyone's equal. Everyone's not equal. And it is very important to recognize the differences, and then as a manager to lean into what the differences are, and like lean into the strengths and maybe correct some of the weaknesses, but particularly leaning into the strengths and figuring those things out. And like that ability, because I was different from an early age, which I didn't think about deeply at the time, but because I can see what makes people different, I use that in my management skills. So when I became a manager of larger teams, that really came out.
This is interesting because you're saying you were not just looking at making it into one team, because that's what a lot of people think, right? We all have to be the same.
Homogenous.
Think the same, move fast, same vision, everybody's doing the same thing. But you were able, apparently, to see, no, the power is in the difference, all the individuals.
Yeah.
And we're able to unlock that difference and turn that, I think, into like an acceleration of performance. Am I correct?
Yeah, correct. I don't think it's interesting to have a team that's all the same people with the same cultural background. We may vehemently agree all the time, and it's wonderful that we're all just like kumbayaing. However, I just don't think it's interesting. I want people to challenge me constantly. I want people to tell me that I'm wrong. And sometimes they are wrong, and sometimes I'm wrong.
Yep.
And I'll say out loud, interesting, I think I've changed my opinion. I'm with you on this.
Yeah.
Or actually, my ability to be able to convince them that actually my opinion is right, I think that makes for a better team, better company, better product.
And how does that play out in reality? Because most people don't like conflict.
Correct.
Right? And also most leaders, let's say the people who are the final decision makers, don't really like to be challenged because they are very convinced of their own vision and the way to go. Yeah. But how does this play out in real life? Because conflict, nobody likes it. You want to be right. You need some kind of a culture. What do you do to make sure that something is healthy conflict and that it creates value?
So I think this is why a large corporate sometimes struggle to continue growing at pace, because people are not supposed to disagree. People are not, and it's why I hated my last job when I was in a regional role. And I was having opinions about everything. I was in a sales role, but I had opinions about marketing and operations. And I was very clearly told, you're not supposed to. That is not your swim lane. Get out of it and go back to your swim lane and fix sales. And I think that's what's the thing that really detested me from wanting to continue that career and that path. And then when I joined Mews, I found Richard, and we just were so different. And I loved him deeply as a friend, but I just disagreed with him all the time. But ultimately, it led to better products. So in the first few years,
Richard is your co-founder.
Richard is the co-founder, yeah. So, and we've now been working for 13 years together. And in the beginning, I really struggled because we had we were immature. We had immature fights. I would say things that weren't very nice.
Yeah.
But throughout time, you learn to work together. But I love that he will always disagree with me, and sometimes just to challenge me. Sometimes he doesn't actually disagree with me, but he will
wants to challenge your thinking and see, can we come up with an even better idea?
Yeah.
But still, I want to know, because you love it, you love conflict. That's easy to say, but you need something underneath that to have this conflict, right? Because if you
say, I work at Mews, for example.
Exactly.
Why would I like having conflict at Mews?
I think a lot of people don't like it, and we have to find the people that enjoy the growth. I think the growth comes out of conflict. It doesn't come from someone who loves everything you do and say, yeah, well done, do more of that. No, tell me what is great, but also tell me directly what you don't like about the thing that I've built. And hopefully you grow from that. And I want people that constantly challenge themselves to do better. So I go and give very public feedback on features on products, and I test things out. And I give feedback in a very respectful way, but very direct. I'm as Dutch as it comes. And some people respond very well to that. And they're the people that thrive at Mews, and some people don't. And they might not thrive long-term at Mews. And we have this conversation often. I said, I want you to have growth mindset. And if you feel uncomfortable in it, maybe this is not the company for you. And that's okay. There's great companies out there that are great for you. But for Mews, we need to challenge people. We want to constantly improve. I want you to be reading. I want you to be listening to podcasts and develop yourself.
Yeah. But there's also something I know about your culture is that you have a very high level of psychological safety. So, because that's what I'm trying to get at. To have this conflict, to have this growth mindset, to be able to make mistakes, you need to feel safe enough to be you. You need to feel safe enough to say, hey, Matt, it's really hard for me now to, for instance, adopt this AI mindset, which I know that you are trying to transform your company now with. I need help. Or I'm having trouble because I'm in perimenopause and I have brain fog. So this week is not going to be a good week for me to join a hackathon.
Yeah.
What would you say?
So I generally lead by making myself really vulnerable. And I'm like, yeah, I'm also nervous about AI. So let me record myself building some vibe coding an app and I'll just throw it on the internet. And I may look like a complete idiot, but at least I'm the first to go. I'm the most senior leader. And, yes, we're sitting in a beautiful ivory tower, but actually by constantly exposing my weaknesses, but actually throughout that, I'm going through this learning process and I do that publicly.
Yep.
People feel, if he can make these stupid mistakes, or actually they're not mistakes, but if he can show up and be his real self, I can do that. And I've always just done that as publicly as possible because I think that's works well when I have a difficult leadership meeting. Normally I start we go around the room and we say, what's the thing, what's on your mind at the moment? And I'll start. And I always believe in leaders eat last, but in that moment at an offsite, I lead.
Yeah.
And I have to start with something vulnerable that is upsetting me in that moment because I set the tone for the rest of the conversation. And this is the role of a CEO. We shouldn't just show strength all the time. It's exhausting to listen to people that are only having an amazing career and an amazing life. No, shit goes on in my life.
But yeah, and that's exactly the point that I wanted to make. And I think that's important for people who are now, working in this time and age. Everything is going fast. AI is going to change everything, blah, blah, blah. But we're not all going to win the same way.
Yeah.
We also need to be, humble and human. And again, know who we are, know who others are, and really be curious about knowing them and then leveraging that for growth and embracing the complexity and the tension. And you do that. But there are still, on the other side, lots of CEOs and leaders who are also making lots of money and not doing this. What do you think is going to happen to, I always say you have the lane one leaders who lead from following the same pattern, just copying what the guy before them did. And you have lane two leaders who dare to lead from what makes them different.
I hope by doing something different that I will succeed more and that I will have a bigger voice and that I get invited to conversations like this where I can share a different viewpoint. Because people are bored of the sameness, and sometimes when you can cut through that, there's more success on the other side. But it's a gamble, right? Maybe people don't want to hear more from me or from these type of leaders because we just want more sameness.
I think that there are going to be so many people who are going to be different from you, but also very different from the sameness route. And all these individuals who are themselves, build teams that leverage difference, build cultures that leverage difference. They will not all be Mews. They will be their own authentic, impactful company, changing hopefully the world and the system. And if we accelerate the sameness here on the other side, I do not really agree that they are going to be successful because AI is accelerating
but they are set up
sameness.
For success, right? They have rich parents. They've gone to the right Ivy League school.
True.
They've got the right social environment to succeed. So whilst they might not be exceptional leaders, they have all the ingredients for success. And some of them will still fail.
But the definition of
will
success
not.
is then important, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that's...
Is it money or is it societal impact in some form?
Are you now in a position that you say, my next growth step is to challenge the system beyond my company borders?
Yes.
Yeah?
I think so. But I have to do that without destroying brand value. And I think that's the hardest thing. I have to protect the company at all costs. And it's like, how do I protect the company and the shareholders when I also have personal values and they might be very different? We have many American investors who they don't really want to hear words like DEI on a podcast.
Yeah.
But their values I deeply care about and represent in the way that we build culture. So I have to do that in a balanced way. And
how do you do
that?
How do you do that? Because I think a lot of leaders are asking themselves this question.
I just don't shy away from the conversation still. And if someone is willing to challenge me on it, I'll engage in that conversation. If it might be a shareholder who's like, I don't agree with it. I'm like, well, tell me why. And let's go deep on that. Because it actually forces a very important conversation that we actually shy away from today.
What are the important conversations that you think we are shying away from?
DEI. Why does it matter? Because now it's become this toxic acronym for no reason. I'm like, what are you objecting? Is it diversity, that you want a diverse team? Is it fair pay for everyone? Is it, what are we disagreeing with on this thing? But they've just turned this word into a weapon today.
Yep.
And the moment someone is willing to have the conversation, and sometimes people will not be able to have an open conversation because people are, they just closed off to that thing. But if I see someone who's genuinely interested in having it, I'm like, great, let's have that conversation, and it'll take half an hour.
But how you still talk about diversity and inclusion then, as opposed to those American investors, for example? How do you balance in this specific case?
I never use the
two?
word. I just don't use the word, but I still talk about it. So I go on LinkedIn and I'll interview someone with neurodiversity, and it's a DEI conversation, but I will never call it out. I'm like, let's interview this person who works at Mews, and you have neurodiversity. Can I ask you some uncomfortable questions about that? And I trap people into it somehow. Not the person interviewing, because she knows very much what I'm doing, but I'm trapping an audience. And I did a video the other day about neurodiversity, and I interviewed a person, and thousands of people watched it. And I'm sure out of the 5,000-6,000 people that watched it, there may have been a few people that didn't know this was a DEI conversation.
Yeah.
And by just removing the brand that's toxic, but still having the deep conversations, you do reach some audience that needs it.
About being curious to the unknown, about people that are different.
Yeah, I think we all need to, I love when someone makes me uncomfortable. And people with neurodiversity sometimes make me uncomfortable because they respond in a way that I wasn't expecting. And I think that's interesting. And they have superpowers, right? These people are deep thinkers. So I'm like, great, let me figure out, why does it make me uncomfortable? Can I ask you a few questions? Because I want to discover what is the thing that makes me uncomfortable, and teach me how I help you thrive at Mews in some way. And by doing it publicly, it also says like, wow, this is a CEO who's leaning into the conversation. He's publicly learning about this thing. And somehow everyone else gets to know this person really deeply as well.
I am hearing so many great things, like diamonds in the stories that you're sharing, because you are literally showing the world how important identity is, how important difference is, how you can create systems, structures, cultures to leverage that difference. They're very tied to your value as a person. I think it's also the reason why lots of people want to work for Mews, why they are willing to go through what I always call the pain of growth, because of who you are and what you have built. And at the same time, I know people are saying, but how do you turn this into a unicorn company? How does this translate to just making money, getting hoteliers to use your software? Where's the connection between this, what we all strongly believe, yes, this is the world we need, but where's the money?
But it can't be about the money. Money will come. And I've always known I'm a smart person. I work really hard. I will thrive in life, and I don't ever have to worry about money. And I might not have been as wealthy as I am today because, money comes with success.
Yeah.
But I will always be fine because I work really, really hard. But I think people want to work for a company that has a mission, and we have a very clear mission. I think travel is very exciting, and we have to make it easier for people to experience the world and be exposed to cultures. So we talk deeply about the why behind the business, and that's how people get on board. And, then I have to build incredible tech that proves out that it's good. And then the money will follow.
Yeah.
And then that gets reinvested into faster growth so we can change the world in a better way. But the why for any leader, your motto can't be, let's make more money together. No one is inspired, or maybe a few people are inspired by that, but it's
nobody.
Not what drives the exceptional talents. They're really, really smart people. They want to work for a company that have a strong engagement with the mission on.
Of the people. So what would you say to a CEO who said, but my core task now from all my shareholders is to grow, grow, grow. I have to get out of the red numbers. Sorry, Ingrid, Pim, Matt, I do not have time for identity and inclusion and psychological safety.
I'd say good luck with that business. They might be fine, but they won't be one of the greats.
They won't be one of the greats. Okay.
I think to become a truly great, transformative, multi-generational kind of company that will survive multiple of these flows of innovation, I think you have to do something different.
Great. My point is, summing it up, you can reach the top, by following the typical road to success.
Yeah.
But you will outperform if you dare to be different. That's kind of what you're saying.
I think so. I think a lot of people are set up for great success, but for some reason, white straight males run that CEO role. Like, why are there so many white straight men running that role? It's because of privilege. They have been set up in the right societies and the right backgrounds and cultures and, heritage. But sometimes there are ones that stand out, and it's those people are the special ones, the women that step up, or the LGBT communities that have done something different because they recognize the weaknesses and then turn those into a strength. And I hope that we'll see more of those examples in the future.
More of those exceptionals.
More, yeah. Well, I hope that people see you also, Matt, as an inspiration, that you dare to be different and new, because we are the majority. We are not the exceptions.
Yeah.
Because there are only like 3% of these white straight men that are all at the top. But if we dare to be who we are, the system that now looks as if that is the system will change, and we will be able to change the system. Love all these learnings and lessons from you. Pim, last episode we had Matthijs.
Matthijs
Schreek, yes. And Matthijs.
Great name.
Yeah. Matt.
Yeah, Matt. And Matthijs wanted to ask you a question because he has something that he would like to learn or know from you. Pim, what was it again?
Yes, let me peek a bit here. Oh, again. Yeah, so it was about the company culture, and that he was wondering if, or now that Mews is growing, if you're maintaining still that startup culture like you started with, or if the culture is shifting a bit to being more corporate.
Yes, it's definitely shifting, and it should shift. I think company culture should constantly iterate.
In what ways do you notice it's shifting?
In a startup, it's messy and people do multiple functions and it doesn't scale really well. And suddenly when you're 1,300 people, you have to have certain processes in place because you have to put controls in place because not everyone has good intentions. Unfortunately, if you have 1,300 people, there's lots of people that have good intentions, but I don't know everyone anymore. And people don't have the same moral compass when they spend companies' money because they're like, well, they've raised so much money, so I can just spend it wildly. Mm-hmm. So there has to be some base level of rules that we put in place. We also wrote a constitution which describes the behaviors that we expect from users because we felt like that was, in the early days implied, but suddenly they don't know me personally anymore and what we stand for and how I spend money on travel. So we wrote a constitution to kind of give that baseline. So
what are some rules in the constitution of Mews?
Just like, seek out growth, for example, or we love a sense of humor. Like, we all work really hard, but I also want to laugh in my meetings and like little things that make the culture very uniquely Mews. And we're now writing an amendment because AI is changing again everything that happens, and we feel like we need to reiterate kind of that constitution.
But this, to me, still sounds very startup. It's only that you are documenting and organizing more the mindset that you always had and the values that you always had, but you have a system in place to scale that.
Correct. And I think we're probably in this hybrid stage.
Yeah, that's called corporate because you have to document it and rules.
Everyone always says corporate like it's a swear word. And I don't think it's all bad. Right? These are highly successful companies that have structure in place in which people can thrive. So, we talk about corporates because it sounds mind-numbingly awful companies you don't want to work at. But actually, I think there's examples of great companies that could do corporate in a good way, in an exciting way.
Do you think AI is going to make your company more human and that identity intelligence is going to become more important? Or do you think technology is that companies are going to be a lot more tech and less human?
I think more human. I think someone leveraging, like someone who's not performing and using AI is going to just throw more slop into the world. And I don't want those people at Mews because they just distract us. But if you find highly talented individuals that have IQ and EQ, who can talk to customers, who can build solutions that customers love and can put them out really, really fast and iterate on them again, will be incredibly powerful. But they have to have EQ to be able to have, thoughtful conversations with customers to understand what actually they're looking for. Yeah. And if you run on IQ alone, you can't build incredible customer solutions anymore. So I think we'll be more personable, but it's definitely going to be quite a journey to get there because it's very disruptive to the old org structures that we used to build.
Yep. Great. Thank you for all those insights, Matt. We are coming to the end of this episode. In our next episode, we'll be speaking to Pim.
Corinne Aaron, former chief marketing officer of Tesla, Link & Co. And we're very curious what you want to learn from her.
And she's marketing, right?
Yes.
So I would probably want to understand the future of marketing leadership. I think that the marketing is changing. It's probably one of the departments that's changing faster than anything else with AI. And how do you, as a marketing leader, navigate kind of the reconstruction of a team? Because individuals can get a lot more responsibility, but how do you manage the team dynamics in that kind of environment?
Great question. How do you manage the team dynamics in marketing within the transformation
within the AI transformation?
Within the AI transformation. Yeah. One last question. Pim and I were talking about this. Is there something that you would like to change in the world or see that is different from how it is now?
I think leaders today, we talk, and very rarely we actually deeply listen. And I just wish we would spend more time listening and asking follow-up questions to go deeper in understanding what's going on. And I think if our country leaders or business leaders learn the skill of listening and asking great, thoughtful questions, we'll be in a much better place.
Is there somebody who inspires you, who does that in a very authentic, deep way?
I think someone like Satya Nadella, who's come into a very traditional organization and he leads with emotional intelligence, and he's just turned that company around. Like, we were all not excited about Microsoft a couple of years ago, and now they've really, come back and they're doing incredibly well. Mm-hmm. And it is because of his talents. And I think he's got a son with a disability, and he's got this view on that. Like, he had to deal with that in some way, and I think it made him a better leader because of it.
Yeah.
And for people that find it difficult to listen and ask questions, what has helped you, or what would you say can encourage other people to do more?
So I sometimes go into a meeting and I'm like, I'm really not interested in this topic. It happens regularly. But if I'm in that meeting, I force myself to ask a question at the end of it. So it forces me to listen deeply because I don't want to ask a stupid question. But like, always making sure that you push yourself to ask a thoughtful question, because someone who's putting up a meeting is putting a lot of time to be there and present to me. So it's my responsibility to ask a question, an open question that shows that I've deeply listened. So challenge yourself to ask one question at the end of the meeting, and hopefully that will make you listen deeply.
So, devil's advocate, I fully agree. But what is it bringing asking questions?
So, one, your team recognizes that you will show up and you will listen deeply and have an opinion about their work.
So they feel seen?
I think so. And people want to be seen. When I show up at a meeting, they're like, wow, shit, the CEO is here. And I'm not just there as a passenger on the bus. I'm there driving the bus. And I want to give them inputs in their work, or want to give them direction. I don't want them to feel like they've presented something and they're not clear whether they did a good job or a bad job. And I specifically love team members that right after I hang up the meeting, they write me a message and say, do you have any feedback for me? And it's very rare. Like, I would say 1 out of 20 people, or 20 times that I do a meeting, that someone writes me. But when someone asks me directly if I have feedback, I go back and sometimes I watch back some of the parts of the meeting so that I can write, deep feedback to that person, because they're clearly looking to grow. And asking for feedback is such a critical skill. We always expect our manager to just give us feedback on the go, and it just doesn't happen most of the time. So if you are looking to grow, ask for feedback, because that's the only way that you'll actually get honest feedback and grow, hopefully.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Exceptionals, the podcast. Produced in partnership with Site of Media and Stamped Studios. If you want to learn more about identity intelligence and do the assessment yourself, go to weareexceptionals.com. Thank you for being exceptional.